Today, I'm interviewing Claire Rowan, and I will be asking her some questions about people with intellectual disabilities and how they have impacted her life and how they have affected her overall beliefs. Thank you, Claire. Why don't you tell us about yourself?
Thanks, Regina. I'm a mother of 7. I have a couple of babies in heaven, but 7 are living with us, and I'm in my 50s. I've been married nearly 30 years. I grew up in this Northern Virginia area my whole life, and my parents are still living, and they have been married over 60 years. Most of my life, other than raising my children and taking care of the family, I have taught religion or religious ed throughout the Arlington Diocese, and my family and God are my passion.
Thank you. So our first question is, who are some people in your life that have Down syndrome or intellectual disabilities, and how have these individuals impacted your life?
Well, when I was young, a small child, I think the first people in my life with intellectual disabilities were the elderly. My own grandparents and some of my friends' grandparents had dementia, and I was afraid of them. I didn't know how to act around them. I had no understanding of what they thought. When I was in 3rd grade, one of my best friend's brothers was hit by a car. It was tragic. He was stuck under a dump truck. Afterwards, he was severely mentally affected. His name was Vincent. Vincent grew up with all of us, but Vincent wasn't the Vincent we knew anymore. And again, I was afraid. I didn't know how to act around him for years because he was in our schools. And it was tough. And I was immature. Then when I got older, my sister had her first baby with Down syndrome. And this kind of changed everything because here was my nephew in our family. And I began to learn more and more about Down syndrome and people with mental disabilities and challenges. Later, one of my best friends, her last child, Mary Kate, she had Down syndrome. My nephew is severely affected by Down syndrome and can't speak. Mary Kate is highly functional. She's going to get a job and she's going to go to school, and the differences are tremendous. So I learned a lot in how to relate to these kids better because they're people, and they're people with dreams and ideas. Even though one can't communicate them, we know what he needs and wants and loves. And then Mary Kate, she'll speak for herself. She's just crazy awesome. I have 2 other friends who have children who are now adults with mental challenges. One, she is the most sweetest young lady I've ever met in my life. And being around her and being forced to communicate the way she communicates took some time to learn. But now I have a greater understanding of her mental challenges and the beauty of who she just is, and asking me what I had to eat every day. My other friend, her son's issue is a little different. He is autistic, but he's on the spectrum where it just seems like he doesn't have mental challenges until they flare up. And then you realize that there's something different about the way he thinks and about the way his brain works, and it's just from the development of what happened when he was growing inside his mom. He too is a challenge, but he's an awesome person. He's full of knowledge. He's very technical, and he's just a fun person to be around. Whenever there are conflicts or issues that flare up, you really have to be patient and know how to handle it, and always keep in mind that they're not coming from the same place that you are coming from, or that maybe one of your children that doesn't have those kind of mental challenges is able to cope with.
Thank you. So, do you believe It is hard as a mother to raise a child with intellectual disabilities. And in correspondence with that belief, do you think it is just for a woman to terminate her pregnancy if she thinks she cannot properly provide for her child?
Well, let's just start out. It's hard to raise any child, mental disability or not mental disability. Raising children is tough work, but it's a work of love. Regardless of what the issue is with a child, it's always the mom and the dad, but the mom who offers a labor of love throughout pregnancy, into birth, and then raising them up. When you have a child with mental disabilities, and some can be very severe. I've had friends that have had children that are severe and they've passed away early on. It is very challenging. It's tough. You have to have extra help, and you have to have a close relationship with God in order to keep you level to know what's important in the world. And the most important thing is to get all souls to heaven. So frequently, our world bombards us with things that we have to be perfect and beautiful and win and the best. And when you have a child with disabilities, and some children without disabilities, I mean, this is just not going to match up to what you see in pictures or read in the media or see on the movies. And you have to keep yourself grounded in faith to know that that's not what it's about. What it's about is the uniqueness of each human soul, whether they have disabilities or not. So as far as it goes with terminating a pregnancy, this is something that's close to my heart because my first pregnancy, his name was Brendan, and he had obstructed bladder, which meant that he was going to be born with mental deficiencies. His lungs weren't going to work properly, and it was terrible and sad. I found out this, 17 weeks of pregnancy, I found this out. So they told us to abort him. I had friends tell me to abort him. I had family members tell me to abort him because he was going to die anyway. Well, that's not how we saw it. We saw this little guy as a gift from God, and we were going to carry him throughout the pregnancy and pray for a miracle of a healthy baby, but also pray for the miracle of him being born alive and baptized and going to heaven. And that's what ended up happening. I went full term. Before he was delivered, I did spend 2 weeks in the hospital under high risk issues, and I got to grow closer to him during those 2 weeks because every day they did an ultrasound, and there was my little Brendan moving around, swimming, sucking his thumb, kicking me. It was cool. I got to see him and be with him the last 2 weeks before he was born. And in this case, we all knew pretty much that was going to be his death too. So we were prepared to have a child with disabilities. We prayed to have our little guy be born alive and live longer than just a half hour. But that's not what happened. And now I encourage everyone to love those little babies and to know that it's God who gives us life and it's God who takes life away. And the joy of a baby with disabilities or an adult with disabilities is incomprehensible. But you just have to stay grounded. You have to stay grounded and know what's important in life. And for those people who feel like they're overwhelmed and they can't do it, there are services out there that are ready, willing to help you through the pregnancy and to adopt that baby with disabilities because we're all children of God. And again, it's God who gives us life, and it's only God who can take life from us.
Thank you so much.